So what does it mean when a place name describes a gap in the ground? Waskatenau, that's a Cree word. It means opening in the bank, and that name points to something physical, something you can actually see if you know where to look. The word refers to a cleft in the ridge just north of here, where Waskatenau Creek cuts through on its way to the North Saskatchewan River. The geography wrote itself into the language, and the language stuck around. Hello and welcome to the video. If this is your first time here, my name is Mike. If you've been here before, my name is still Mike, but you would have known that already. The village hasn't always been called that. Back in the 1880s, a Cree band named Waskatenau lived in this area. The name meant roughly the same thing, a reference to that opening in the bank. They moved south to the Saddle Lake Reserve later on, but the place kept its name, just spelled differently. The new spelling, Waskatenau, was in common use around 1920, and that's when things shifted. Around that same time, the Canadian National Railway was building a line east from Edmonton. They were pushing towards St. Paul, cutting through the country that had mostly been defined by trails in the river before. In 1920, Waskatenau became a station on that line, positioned right between Radway and Warspite, built where the tracks had to cross the creek on a high timber bridge. The station had a water tank to service the locomotives, and that's the kind of detail that mattered. A place wasn't just on the railway, it was a functional point in the system. The village was formally incorporated on May 19, 1932, and by then the railway had already reshaped how people moved through here. Not just goods and mail, but the whole rhythm of living in a place this far from Edmonton. What you can see now if you walk around Waskatenau is how much of what still matters here is tied to those two things, the geography and the routes. The Victoria Trail runs south of town, following the North Saskatchewan River, much the way it did in the 1870s when it connected traders and settlers between Fort Edmonton and Victoria Settlement. The trail still meanders along the river, defying the grid. That 1919 wooden rail trestle that crosses Waskatenau Creek, it's still there. You can actually walk out on it today. It's one of the older structures in the area and marks the western end of the Iron Horse Trail, which stretches east for 260 kilometers. The creek, the river, the ridge that opened up enough to let water through, those things didn't change when the railway arrived. They were already here, shaping where people stopped, where they built, and what routes made sense. The railway just made Waskatenau official. It turned a geographic fact into a place on the map. What Waskatenau is today is still rooted in that same logic. A small village of about 260 people, anchored between trails and water, between the routes that make sense when you look at the landscape. It's a place where history isn't something that happened and passed. It's still part of how the town functions, how people move through here, and what they're connected to. The village is proud of that. It shows in the way the locals maintain the trails, keep the history visible, and understand that the gaps and the routes matter. So if you enjoyed this little journey, give that like button a tap. It's free and oddly satisfying. If you haven't subscribed yet, just know I share a new small town story every week, weather permitting, of course. Feel free to pass this along to your aunt, your neighbor, or that one friend who still thinks Alberta ends at Calgary. They need this more than they know. If you'd like to chip in and help keep the drone batteries charged and the gas tank filled, there is a Ko-fi link in the description, and you'll find gradient imaging on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, because apparently I'm not busy enough. But until next week, drive safe, wave at strangers, and take the scenic route.